All right, hey guys, what's going on? It's that Home Theater Dude. Got a brand new episode for today. As you guys know, I've had the Emotiva RMC-1 in the house for the last 2 months. I've had a lot of time with this thing, and now is finally the time that I'm going to go ahead and do my final review for this unit, and we're going to go ahead and talk about all that stuff, and we'll get into it right after the intro. All right, so the RMC-1, pretty sweet unit. I've had it in the house for the last 2 months. It's been an amazing performer. I really love the sound that comes out of this thing. And so right now I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into a couple of the experiences I've had. If you guys are looking for more of the what's included in the box or what the actual unit is has to offer, go ahead and click right up here. I'm gonna leave a link to the actual unboxing video, and then you guys can check that out. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my experiences with the unit over the last 2 months. So starting off with the unit, right out of the box is a 16-channel preamp processor. It's capable of expansion.
There's a lot of potential for aggressive expansion.
So if you want to actually expand that 4 channels at a time, you have 3 expansion ports on the back of that. So with the expansion ports, basically what it entails to is all you do is you box up your unit, send it out to Emotiva. I think with the 4-channel expansion port, just the rate for that one is going to be $6.99 at the moment. All you do is you pay that money, it gets shipped out to Franklin, Tennessee. And the cool thing with this unit is it's built and manufactured in Franklin, Tennessee. So this is a USA product, which is really cool. And you guys know with my military experience, I always like to support, native USA products. So with talking about that unit itself, you actually have a couple different expansion modules that you can choose to do. And this is something that was just brought to my attention. It's going to be available a little later on. You're going to have 2 pairs of fully balanced XLR inputs. You're going to have 2 pairs of unbalanced inputs, as well as being able to increase your availability of streaming services like Tidal, Qobuz, Spotify, different things like that. So since the unit doesn't necessarily have it now, doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to have it in the future. So that's just something that I've been privy to just recently. If it does come to fruition, I really hope it does, but that's just the information that I have right now. So stay tuned to that a little later on. Maybe I can update you guys whenever it actually happens. So saying that, basically what it means is if you ever want to upgrade this preamp processor as time goes on, as your tastes evolve, you don't necessarily have to throw this thing out, which is really cool, because that is the biggest thing that I was super excited about whenever I heard from the president of Emotiva actually talking about it. Dan was saying that their philosophy isn't necessarily throwing out tech. And I know that with a lot of the companies, they come out with a model every single year, and it's cool in some rights, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary. It's kind of like a slap in the face to the people that paid top dollar for the unit year before, and then another year later, another unit comes out. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of daunting to spend your money on something whenever a little bit while in the future they're going to come out with another unit anyway. So, putting all that aside, Emotiva actually started combating that by actually using a philosophy that you can actually upgrade your unit rather than throwing it out. So that's what really got me excited about this thing. So just right out of the box, 16 channels are available to you. I'm using this as a 9.2.6. I'm actually using all 16 channels. So I guess technically I'm using 17 channels since I have the Subwoofers daisy change. So anyways, if you're going to be using this and you have enough speakers, if you have 9 channels on the horizontal, 1 subwoofer, and then 6 channels overhead, you can actually take full advantage of that 9.1.6. But if you want to go ahead and daisy chain 1 subwoofer to another subwoofer and basically run them together, then you can do that as well. So I mean, you're not necessarily limited to what the processor is capable of, but you are limited to your subwoofer's capabilities of being directional and different things like that. It really just doubles down on the Atmos experience. It's also capable of dts-X and all the rest of those ancillary ones below that. dts-X Pro is an option that's coming later on, and I know that dts-X was kind of limited by their 11-channel status previously, and now that they actually have dts-X Pro coming later on next year, you guys can actually take full potential of that. So one thing I will say, the 16 channels are fully differential, fully balanced from beginning to end, and you have the AKM 4490. They're mono DACs, and with these, the Verita DACs, they sound amazing. It's crystal clear performance, and you hear like little nuances that you typically wouldn't hear on the competition and brand X.
Uh-oh, he don't look happy. He's been using brand X.
At the same time, you also have the AKM 5560s, no, you have the 5572 Verita analog DAC. So any of the inputs that you have on the unit that are analog, it's gonna feed through those DACs as well. So the cool thing is, if you guys actually have the space for 28 channels, or even if you don't, if you guys just have space for 11 channels, this preamp processor is definitely gonna be an amazing upgrade for you guys. I've tested it between brand X. I've tested it in between things that I've had in the house before. I mean, the sound that comes out of it is just the best sound that I've heard in my space to date. So it's really saying something for me to actually say that, because I hear a lot of different things on a daily basis. I go to different shows, I hear, you know, different showrooms, I hear different people's setups all the time, and this thing just sounds amazing. And what I really want to do is box this thing up, ship it out to my buddy's house, and maybe we can do a type of video like that, to where I hear it in a different space and then see if I think the same thing. But in my space, it sounds the best, and I really enjoy this unit so far. Okay, so let's talk about the back of this unit. You're gonna have 16 outputs on the back of there, and with those connections, they're gonna be balanced connections. So with balanced connections, you're gonna have to use an XLR cable. XLR cables are balanced connections. They're completely different than the traditional interconnect RCA subwoofer type cable that you guys may be used to. Those are unbalanced connections. You guys may be used to, you know, hooking up an external amplifier with your AV processor, your AVR, whatever it is, with those connections. And the reason why I'm going through all this explanation is that the whole reason to step up to this level of performance is you're gonna wanna use those balanced connections. And if you don't necessarily have amplifiers that have those balanced inputs, then I would probably recommend either upgrading your amplifiers or maybe not grabbing this unit itself. Because some people, they think it's okay just to get the adapters for the balanced to unbalanced, which basically means the balanced part goes into the actual unit, and then you basically have a termination to where you plug in an RCA, which is unbalanced, into your actual amplifier. It completely negates the purpose of going to balanced connections, and some people don't necessarily understand that. So the only reason why I would recommend doing that is that if you have a subwoofer that is not capable of accepting a balanced connection, which is going to be one of those XLR inputs, then I would probably recommend only having that adapter for that specific purpose. So this Emotiva RMC-1, I mean, I've been talking about it for several months. I've been covering this unit for since Expona, and I've been really excited about it. I've heard horror stories of my brother's uncle's aunt, sister has, you know, had X amount of problems with it. It's buggy, it's laggy, it does all this other stuff. I don't necessarily like giving any of that any press, any of the light of day, because it kind of just perpetuates the idea that people that are, you know, naysaying this product don't necessarily have firsthand experience with it. So saying that, a lot of the things that I've actually dealt with this unit since it's been delivered, I think it got delivered with the 1.4. The 1.4 installed on the actual software. So the cool thing with this unit is it's upgradable. So with the different software iterations that get available, then a lot of those, you know, bugs and, you know, things that people aren't necessarily happy with, they end up going away through time. So since this one's on a 1.6, the actual software 1.6 update, it has, you know, mitigated a lot of those problems, and each individual iteration of those updates, my user experience with the actual processor has gotten that much better. Another cool thing with this one is that it's just completely focused around sound. So I'm gonna keep talking about the unit in terms of sound performance, because that's pretty much the reason why you would want to go with this one in the first place. It has 11 band EQ per channel, and that has 16 channels. So think about the amount of adjustments that you can actually do with that. And at the same time, you also have global tone controls over that. So you can basically, you have your 11 band EQ, right? And at the same time, if you want to dip and boost certain levels, certain frequencies, you can do that globally with the actual tone changes as well. So like I was just talking about, the number of adjustments, it's ridiculous. And at the same time, if you guys want to take that to another level, you can either do an RTA, real-time audio calibration, which basically means you get someone come in to your house or your space, and you have them do a full-on professional audio calibration. This unit actually allows that to happen because it has the Q adjustments, and it allows you to, you know, basically make all those adjustments to make the best sound possible for your actual unit. And that's another thing that you may have to consider. It's something that you will pay for. Dirac Live is something that they actually include with the unit. It's still not available right now. This is October of 2019, and it's still not available right now. They keep saying that it's going to become available, and last time I heard it was basically held up on Dirac's side, but I don't want to go ahead and get, you know, all the politics involved. But whenever this actual software, this audio calibration actually becomes available for this unit, I think that it's really going to open up a lot of people's perception of what sound will be in your actual space. Still, right now it's not available, so if you guys haven't already, please check out my video on how to calibrate your home theater system right here, and that'll help you guys out a lot in lieu of not actually having the auto calibration from Dirac Live just yet. So one quick thing I'm gonna let you guys know about is that the actual unit is rack mounted. You can have several different iterations of this. You can put it, you know, front and center out in your entertainment stand. You can put it in a shelf. I will get into a couple of reasons why I wouldn't necessarily do that. But you can also put it in a rack mount configuration. And with my rack mounted setup, it's basically the thing at the top, and that is a reason for consideration. I'll go into that a little later. But at the same time, if you're gonna be having this level of processing power, you're going to want to have a large enough rack or a large enough AV server to actually account for that. So I would probably recommend having this thing at a minimum of a 24U rack mount. And right now I only have 18, and it doesn't meet my needs. I need more. And just for the space that it's sitting in, I got this thing used. I got it, you know, a year ago. It works perfect, so there's really no reason to replace it just yet. But whenever I move, I may want to go ahead and upgrade the actual size of the rack to accommodate for that. Okay, so for amplification, I'm using Parasound amplifiers. These have been really great. I've used them before in my Denon setup. I've used them before in my Marantz setup. And the actual amplifiers I'm using right now for the main stage, for the 5 channels on the main stage, I'm using the Parasound A51. And then also for the surrounds, I have the Parasound A52 Plus. So with that one controls the surrounds. I have one channel that's not being used. I may or may not actually buy another 52 Plus down the road to cover the actual heights. So with that spare channel that I'm using, I can have the 6 channels going overhead. But on top of there, I'm using the Arkham P1000, and that's the 7 channels by 150 or 135, and that basically runs my height speakers. So let's go ahead and talk about the remote. So the remote, I originally touted this thing as being a really cool type of feature. I thought it was awesome because it's like metal. You never see a metal type of remote. And it's big and beefy in construction. And this is basically one of those things in Clue that you can use as one of those murder weapons.
Yvette hid in the study to check that Mr. Body was dead. He got up and followed them down the hall. So she hit him on the head with a candlestick and dragged him to the toilet.
It's beefy, it's built like a tank, and pretty much indestructible. But it is destructible because I lost one of the bolts on the bottom here. So I don't necessarily know where that little guy went, but I lost it. Another thing that I will say is that there is no backlight on the actual remote itself. So it'd be really nice to have a backlight on these buttons so that whenever you're, you know, in the dark and you're trying to, you know, figure out which input you want to do or you want to turn up the volume, it's all right there for you to actually see to, you know, make it perform. But at the same time, I mean, who really cares about remotes? If you're going to be having a home theater, you're probably going to have a universal remote anyway. I use the Harmony, the Logitech Harmony Elite remote, and that one basically has everything for you. Since having this unit already, since I got it so soon, it doesn't necessarily have the program logged into the Logitech just yet, so you can't necessarily just, you know, copy it right over, but you can program in this unit to the actual Logitech, so you can use all the functions on there, and that thing's backlit. You never have to worry about any of that stuff. It's very easy to actually function that way. Another thing, there's no HDMI on the front. So probably what I would say is grab a couple of HDMIs in varying length and then put them in on the back and then label them on the front. So you can basically just have them tucked away in your rack mount. So if you want to go ahead and plug something in real quick, it's not cumbersome for you to actually take the unit out, rotate it, mess with all the connections. It kind of just makes everything streamlined that way so that, you don't necessarily need to get frustrated whenever you want to go ahead and add a unit. Sometimes the kids want to come in, they want to play their Xbox or something like that. It makes it real easy for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about a couple things I don't like. So with the functionality on this thing, sometimes it's kind of cumbersome for the actual unit to perform the way it needs to perform at peak level. Basically what I'm saying is that the problem that I had with the unit is that it likes to search for the best possible codec, which is awesome. But I mean, if you're watching the same TV show, or if you're watching, basically I only had problems with it during TV watching. So I have a 4K Apple TV, and whenever I'm watching TV, it'll basically search for the best codec, which is awesome, and it'll display whatever the native codec was. But at the same time, if it goes to commercial, the commercial may be recorded at a different format than your, TV show you're just watching. So it kind of tries to search in between the two. So it basically cuts out audio and then searches for it for a second and then puts it back in. So it's kind of annoying. I'm sure that a lot of that will be fixed in a future upgrade, but from my experience right now on the actual upgrade that's on, the update that's on right now, that's just the way it is. So as far as functionality, this thing isn't performing exactly the same as you would with like a Pioneer, a Denon, or Marantz, or different things like that. But at the same time, it's performing at a higher level of sound performance. So I would rather have a little bit of a trade-off with something that I would like to deal with, like the, pressing through the menus, which I don't do every single day, and having amazing sound versus, having flawless operation of, messing through the menus and then having subpar sound with Brand X.
Brand X.
So that's just something that I would go ahead and mention here. So another thing I will talk about is cost. So this unit costs $5,000 USD as of right now in the States. So if you're looking at a unit like this, you have to understand that it's not just the actual product that you're buying. You have to buy, more cables, you have to buy more amplifiers, you have to buy more speakers. It's all those different things that go into the actual cost of the unit. So if you're thinking about getting into this for a budget, then you're into this for the wrong reasons. If you're thinking about this is too much for price, then there are plenty of other options out there for you guys, and you may not want to go ahead and choose this one just yet. So at the same time, with this unit, I think it's actually a really good value, because if you think about the competition, anything that's in the 16 to 28 channel realm is, along the lines of 20,000, 25,000 and up. So the only thing that I've seen in person is the Trinov, and the Trinov, I saw it at Cedia, it sounded amazing, but I couldn't fathom the actual price of the entire system whenever it was all said and done. I'm sure that everything is great in its own means, but it's out of my price range right now, so I can't talk about the level of, I really can't talk about if it's, too expensive or it's not too expensive, because I'm not going to buy it, so I can't afford it. So why sit there and gripe about if it's too expensive for me or not, Another thing I will say is that this thing has a decent amount of startup time. Probably one thing I would recommend doing is keeping it the Zone 2 on. That way it kind of it lowers the actual startup time for you. If not, you're looking at about a minute to a minute and 10, 15 for the unit to actually start up if you have everything off. There's also a completely video on portion that you can click in one of the menus that'll help you out and severely reduce that time. So another thing with the same HDMIs is ARC. ARC is sometimes a problem. It doesn't matter what you're using. There's handshake, agreements going on between every single one of your actual products all the time. So sometimes it works, sometimes the handshake's crappy and it's a little limpy.
Dylan! You son of a bitch! What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils?
At the same time, I will say again, use the same HDMIs for every single one of your actual components. That way, you don't have a problem with it later on down the road. Okay, so another thing I'm talking about, this thing gets hot. It's a processor, it's gonna happen. It deals with teraflops of information going through the actual unit. Just think about all that data going into something. It has to go somewhere, and it's gonna go radiate out from the actual unit itself. So with talking about the heat that's generated by this, a very simple way to combat that is just getting an automatic fan installed. So what I use is the Aircom AC, or the AC Infinity Aircom, I think the T8, the T9, whichever terminator of those fires upwards, I use that one. You can use ones that fire forward, you can use ones that exit backwards, whichever one you want to do, but since this is rack mounted, I put the actual unit at the top of the rack, and at the top of the rack, it's vent to atmosphere, so I just have all that heat expel out the top. That way none of the heat's actually getting soaked on the bottom of the unit or sandwiched in there, and then it saves your expensive electronics from being damaged later on down the road. So that's just one thing I like to do. It's just simple, it's cheap, it's gonna save your bacon. Get a fan, guys, it's gonna work. And all you guys in the Denon and Marantz community, you guys already know about this. AC Infinity, it's where it's at, because those units just get hot even if you're not using any of the internal amplifiers in there at all. So just something to think about. And then the bugs, Everyone talks about the bugs on this thing. So the problem I have with all of that is that people are going off the things that they've read on the internet from, you know, a year back and different things like that. They don't necessarily have firsthand experience with the unit today, and they're talking about how, you know, it's buggy, it's laggy, it's all these things. It's really not all that, and the unit is actually a great performer. If you guys are going to this level of performance, the reason why you want to do it is for better sound anyway. So if you're going to sit there and have to fight through a menu that's a little slower than what you're used to, I mean, I would rather just stick it out and have premium sound than anything. So that's just my 2 takes on it. I really haven't experienced any of the bugs or any of the rest of that stuff besides the stuff that I talked about in this video with the actual unit itself. Dealt with it for 2 months, and to be honest, I think this is going to be a keeper. So Emotiva is actually sending out the XMC2, and the only difference in between the XMC2 and the RMC1 is that RMC1 is expandable past 16 channels, XMC2 is only 16 channels, and only the first 3, the front stage, only the front stage is fully differential. And then on the RMC1, all of the actual channels are differential. So those are the big differences in between the two, and I really want to go ahead and compare the sound differences, because I seriously think that the user interface is going to be pretty much the same across the board. So that pretty much wraps up the video. Hope you liked the sound demos that I did. Hope you liked the overview that I went over, and I hope you guys like the opinions that I did. If you don't, make sure you give the video 2 thumbs down, and that'll help me out a lot. If you guys liked it, give it a big thumbs up. But in the meantime, I really enjoyed this Emotiva RMC-1. It's been a great performer in the house over the last few months, and the sound is just ridiculous. If you guys want to go ahead and check it out for yourselves, I would highly recommend that you actually get this unit in your house, check it out for yourself. If you don't necessarily want to do that, listen to one of the talking heads on YouTube. There's several of us that have already had hands-on this actual unit, and you know, just go from there. But I really enjoy the sound that comes out of this thing. I keep saying it over and over again because I'm very emphatic about the sound that is superior that comes out of this one versus anything that I've heard before. And as always, you guys know me, and if you guys have been with the channel for a while, you guys know that I don't say any of this stuff to generate sales. Like, I'm not a salesman. I could care less if you guys buy this thing or not. I mean, I deal in passive sales. So if you guys do like this video, and you guys do like this type of review, I'm gonna leave links down in the description. And with those links, basically what it does is a very, very small percentage actually goes back into That Home Theater Dude, so that I can reinvest it into the channel, get my hands on more gear, and that way I can give you guys more of my firsthand experience and my testimonials. So, I mean, at the same time, I'm not getting rich off of any of these things. So full transparency, that's just the way I operate. And if you guys are brand new to the channel and you guys don't realize that and you guys think I'm a crook, then leave thumbs down twice. That's all I have to say. But I really appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.